Today, we're about to attempt what Bugatti think is impossible. This is the $6 million Bugatti Sport that was crashed by Alex.
261 miles per hour. That is what this car does. That is not a number from a brochure. That is a documented, verified fact about a machine that costs $4.5 million and exists in 60 examples on this entire planet. Watch it run! Listen to that engine. 16 cylinders. 4 turbochargers. 1,600 horsepower screaming through a custom exhaust in a Miami workshop and making a sound that I genuinely cannot describe to anyone who has not been in the room when it happens. This Bugatti Chiron Sport is running. Right now. In our workshop. Without a single piece of official Bugatti support. Without a service manual. Without factory diagnostic tools. Without one authorized part from the manufacturer that built it. Now let me show you what it looked like before that. This. The front end completely destroyed. The fender pushed so far into the quarter panel there is no gap between them. The hood gone. The carbon fiber panels cracked across every surface that took the impact. The gearbox mounting bracket broken on both sides. The carbon tub was damaged that nobody could fully assess until we split the car in half. With a garbage bin wheelbase. And a 2-post lift. In a regular workshop. Because someone built this car. Which means someone else can take it apart. And now, while the Bugatti is running and Bugatti is watching, and the most public fight between an independent builder and a hypercar manufacturer in the history of this industry is playing out in front of tens of millions of people, something happened that nobody saw coming. Not me. Not Alex. Not anyone in this workshop. Not anyone at Bugatti headquarters in Molsheim watching every single video we put out. A package arrived. From Sweden. From Angel Home. From the factory of a man who has spent 30 years asking the question that Bugatti spent 14 months trying to prevent us from answering. Can someone outside your factory understand and repair what you built? The answer to that question is sitting in our workshop running on all 16 cylinders. And Christian von Koenigsegg just told us he already knew the answer before he sent the box. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. A lot! But saying yes to a $1.9 million Copart salvage title Bugatti Chiron Sport while the CEO of Bugatti was publicly explaining why an independent repair could not be done safely. That was either the decision that defines this channel, or the one that finally breaks it. We are about to find out which one. And Koenigsegg is watching. Right! Let me take you all the way back to where this chain actually started. Because to understand what Christian von Koenigsegg did by sending that package, you need to feel what Bugatti did before it. Alex Gonzalez, Miami-based content creator, crashed his Bugatti Chiron Sport. Insurance paid out. Car went to Copart as a declared total loss. Alex bought it back for $1.9 million. A car worth $4 to $4.5 million intact. He bought it back because the gap between what he paid and what the car is worth in one piece is the entire financial logic of this rebuild. And then he called me. And I flew to Miami. And I stood in front of this car and looked at the damage report and looked at the car and looked at Alex. And said yes. Because that is what we do. We buy the cars nobody else will touch and we bring them back and we drive them on a public road. And nobody on any previous build had tried to stop us the way Bugatti was about to try to stop us. The VIN was locked before the first tool was picked up. Not one authorized Bugatti dealer anywhere on earth. Not headlights. Not trim panels. Not a single mechanical component. The entire global supply chain for this specific vehicle identification number. Closed! And then the CEO of Bugatti posted a video. Careful tone. Respectful toward me as a creator. Firm on the substance. The carbon fiber monocoque may have structural damage. The gearbox housing is cracked. This car can exceed 250 miles per hour. A structural failure at those speeds is not theoretical. Independent repair cannot meet factory standards. The door to Mulcium remains open if Alex changes his mind. He meant every word of it. And he was not wrong about the engineering complexity. But accurate and fair are not always the same thing. And the parts blacklist that preceded his public video told the fuller story of what Bugatti actually wanted here. So we kept going. Now here is my new 3. And this is where the build got genuinely alarming. We get the chassis split done. Garbage bin wheel base. 2-post lift. Tony on one side. Me on the other. And the front and rear halves of a Bugatti Chiron per sport separate in a regular workshop. Just like Bugatti said could only happen in 2 facilities in the entire world. Happening in our garage. And then we see what the split reveals. The gearbox mounting bracket. Broken on both sides. Not a hairline crack. Not surface stress. A cast aluminium structural component that holds the entire drivetrain in position inside the car. Broken. On both sides. Cannot order it. Cannot source it anywhere in the aftermarket. Bugatti makes it. Bugatti sells it. Bugatti has locked this VIN from their supply chain. So I call Bob. Bob flies in. Bob looks at it for 4 seconds. And says one word. Weldable. Not this presents significant engineering challenges. Weldable. And then he preheats the material correctly and welds it and fills the casting voids and reinforces beyond original specification and stamps his actual name on the finished repair. Bob signed a Bugatti. And it held. But then we get to the cooling system. And this is the one that keeps me awake. Alex drove this car without coolant before I got involved. Not briefly. For a distance that matters. And on a previous project I watched that exact situation produce a water pump seal that showed 0 symptoms in a workshop and failed catastrophically under real road load. The Chiron does not have one water pump. It has multiple. Main engine cooling circuit. Charge air cooling circuit for the turbochargers. Gearbox oil cooling circuit. Each one with its own shaft seal. Each one designed to run wet. Each one potentially compromised by running dry. And this problem cannot be fully assessed until the car is on a road under sustained load at full operating temperature. Which it cannot do until after the state inspection. Which it cannot get until the front end is resolved. A potential catastrophic failure hiding inside a cooling system that will only reveal itself at the exact moment we need the car to be performing perfectly. That is the wall I am staring at. And Bugatti has the diagnostic data that would tell us in 5 minutes whether the seals are compromised. And Bugatti is silent. And then the box from Koenigsegg arrives. I am not going to pretend that timing did not hit me differently. Because it did. Standing in the workshop with a cooling system I cannot fully assess on a car that the manufacturer has done everything possible to make harder to fix. And a package appears from Ängelholm, Sweden. From the factory of Christian von Koenigsegg. One of the most exclusive hypercar manufacturers on the planet. Who I have never worked with. Never rebuilt a car from. Never had any commercial relationship with whatsoever. Let me show you what was inside it. Official Koenigsegg merchandise. Hoodies. T-shirts. Premium branded items that Koenigsegg typically reserves for their owners. People who have spent between $2 and $5 million on one of their hypercars. People who are inside the ownership ecosystem that Koenigsegg has spent 30 years building and protecting. Sent to me. While I am rebuilding a car that a different hypercar manufacturer is doing everything institutionally possible to prevent me from completing. Now I need you to understand something about Christian von Koenigsegg before I tell you what that package actually means. Because this is not just a CEO who sent some gear to a YouTuber. This is a man who founded a hypercar company in 1994 with almost no money and no investors and no factory infrastructure and nothing except an absolute refusal to accept that the established players had already figured out the best way to build a performance car. This is the man who looked at the internal combustion engine and removed the camshaft entirely with free valve. Who looked at conventional gearboxes and invented the light-speed transmission. Who looked at electric motor design and asked why choose between radial flux and axial flux when you can combine both. And built the dark matter motor. 39 kilograms. 800 horsepower. 39 kilograms. For comparison, 3 Tesla Model S Plaid motors together weigh around 90 kilograms to achieve similar performance. One dark matter motor. 39 kilograms. 800 horsepower. That is what happens when someone refuses to accept that the established answer is the right answer. And as a child, Christian von Koenigsegg used to take his toys apart to understand how they worked inside. That instinct. That specific instinct of taking something apart to understand why it exists the way it exists is the same instinct that brought this crash tyrant into this workshop. The same instinct that put Bob's name on that gearbox bracket. The same instinct that put a garbage bin wheelbase under a $4 million hypercar because someone built it and someone else can take it apart. Christian von Koenigsegg recognized that instinct. And he sent a box. Not officially. Not with a press release. Not with a formal partnership announcement. A box. From one builder to another. Across the industry divide that separates authorized from independent. Factory from workshop. Manufacturer from rebuilder. And what that box says when you understand who sent it and why and when is this. We are not afraid of what you are proving. We build cars designed to be understood. We build cars that can be taken apart. We build cars the same way you rebuild them. Starting with the question, why does this exist the way it exists? And could it exist better? Now here's what I think happens next. And I am going to be completely straight with you. Because that is how we do things here. I think Koenigsegg just opened a door. Not officially. Not with a contract or a signed agreement or a sanctioned rebuild series. A door! The kind that only opens when the person who built it decides the right person is standing on the other side. And the possibilities behind that door are things I am genuinely having trouble not thinking about constantly. A Koenigsegg on this channel. A visit to the factory in Angelholm where every car is built by hand. Where the dark matter motor was engineered. Where the light-speed transmission was designed from scratch. Where Christian von Koenigsegg walks the production floor the same way Bob walks around a broken bracket. Looking at what exists. Asking why it exists that way. Deciding how to make it better. That is the door Koenigsegg just cracked open. And Bugatti is watching. Because Bugatti is always watching. And the contrast between what these two companies have done in response to the same situation cannot be clearer. Bugatti locked the VIN. Koenigsegg sent the box. Bugatti posted a public video explaining why independent repair cannot be done safely. Koenigsegg sent merchandise reserved for their owners to the workshop proving it can. Bugatti chose silence while the rebuild continued. Koenigsegg chose contact. One company treated this as a threat to be managed. One company treated it as a conversation worth having. And that difference tells you everything about which manufacturer understands where the relationship between builders and brands is going. Because the right to repair is not a niche policy argument anymore. It is not happening in legal filings and technical forums. It is happening in a Miami workshop on YouTube in front of tens of millions of people. With Bob's name stamped on a Bugatti gearbox bracket as the evidence. And the manufacturers who respond to that with locked vents and institutional silence are making a calculation that their brand is worth more protected than the conversation is worth having. And the manufacturers who respond by sending a box from Angel Home to the workshop making that conversation happen are making a completely different calculation. They are saying the conversation is already happening. We would rather be part of it. Now we are at the moment. The battery is charged. 10.5 gallons of fresh coolant in the system. Fuel system primed. Bob standing right there because if anything in that cooling system has been waiting to announce itself, this is the moment it will choose. The Koenigsegg package is on the workbench. Bugatti's silence is somewhere in Molsheim deciding how much longer it can hold. Alex gets in the driver's seat. And the workshop goes completely silent. 14 months. 2 countries. A garbage bin wheel base. A welded gearbox bracket with a name stamped on it. A box from Sweden that arrived when we needed to know that someone in this industry understood what we were doing here. All of it. Right here. Right now. Alex puts his hand on the start button. Every person in that workshop holds their breath. He pushes it. The starter cranks. The fuel pump screams. The W16 turns over and there's one single cough from deep in the engine bay. One cough. And then silence. It does not catch. Gauges flicker. Drop. Workshop stays quiet. Nobody moves. Alex pulls his hand back. Looks at the dash. Looks at me. Bob is already running the checklist. And I look at Alex. And I say the only thing that makes sense in this moment. Try it again. Because Koenigsegg did not send that box to a team that stops at the first attempt. And Bugatti did not go 14 months pretending this could not happen for us to stop at the first attempt. Hand goes back to the button. 14 months of work in the next 10 seconds. And you need to be here when he pushes it. If you think what this team has done against every institutional force Bugatti pointed at us makes us the most determined workshop on automotive YouTube, hit subscribe. If you think a garbage bin will base in a box from Koenigsegg and Bob's name on a Bugatti gearbox bracket is the most extraordinary story this platform has ever carried, hit subscribe anyway. Because part 2 is coming. Bugatti is watching. Koenigsegg is watching. And when that W16 fires and stays running, the sound it makes is going to be heard in Molsheim and in Angel Home. And only one of those places is going to like what it hears.